Okay.
Okay, so let me just share I'll turn on my camera. So how is everybody? I hope you're doing well. One my agenda for this, I'm gonna do a little bit of training, but my agenda for this day is to kind of get a feel of, what are your thoughts? How do you how do you see it? How what like in terms of moving forward, what does that look like for you? And Gladys is I think is coming in. So I'd like to know that, just kind of getting a pulse where you are, um, would mentally, what's the where you are, what does your headspace kind of look like? Gladys, are you able to meet with uh
Sorry, I missed the conversation. Meet
no,
with who?
with Tom? I was thinking of, like, so part of my agenda for today is not just to do the training. I do have a training for you today, but not just about that, but really, kind of trying to understand, like, where, like, has there been work done since the last week, with you and Tam, for example? Was there a discussion? I know Pastor Lillian posted some photos, um but yeah, so just for me to kind of catch up where things are.
No, there was no communication because I was actually waiting for a prompt because we were supposed to start a WhatsApp group. So what I just did is went to try and read the info that David had given us a little bit more and see what exactly is expected. And what I did is already reached out to a couple of women who have projects that need funding, because I
Right.
remember it was really stressed about women. So I was actually waiting for a group. That's why I was like looking for you yesterday. But
I see.
I haven't been able to talk to Tom, but that's something we can do later.
Right. One of the things I think we can do for moving forward is to identify these projects. So just really getting lists of projects. One would be Pastor Lillian's project, right? Just identifying this, and I think so. So this is my interpretation of last week's meeting. Okay, so this is not. So I didn't have enough kind of. There's a lot of things I think that was talked about last Wednesday. But this is my interpretation. Okay, so I think the task at hand is, to look at the USA requirement, right? And it has to touch on, project has to help women and children, right? And then, so our task in ACE is that we will list down projects, evaluate them, try to understand what does it take to create we call that minimum viable product, right? What's the minimum test requirement that we can do, so that we can see and we can actually build a small scale version of the vision, right? So that we can propose for better funding. So we cannot just say to USAID, hey, we need funding, we have an idea. So the thing with when it comes to this, what I know is that, and my perception and my background in terms of funding was really more software, um, right? So it's really more software than anything else. So with software, you need to have traction, right? Before you get funding, you need to have a level of traction. You need to show that you've done something, versus like just idea and business plan. Okay, so we're definitely, one, identify those businesses, evaluate those businesses, and we can start with one business or two businesses, and really just identify the key person who will kind of move it forward. So really what we're going to do is not just build the business, but really help the CEOs, the future CEOs of these businesses, move forward. So this is like what really is like an incubator slash accelerator, um, path for ACE. Um, do you think that what I described, Gladys, is something that you have the same understanding? That's what we're gonna do.
Yes, absolutely. That's the way I understood it. Because even the people identified, it was very clear that it has to be something that's already on the ground. It has to be something that's already established, and they need help to move like to the next step. So
Right.
that's the way I understood it. Yeah.
Great. So that means that I've understood correctly the requirement, right? Now having said that, I think what we need to do is maybe you, me, and Tom, Gladys, we can meet. Let me just look at my calendar. Yeah, we can meet same time tomorrow if you're free, or Friday. Okay, so do let me know in the like later in WhatsApp, please. And then usually if I won't respond, you're probably not send. So normally if I don't respond, I haven't read it. I'm easier to find in Facebook than in WhatsApp. I do make it a point. I check it maybe once, twice a day. So if you're sending it around like, so usually when I'm outside the house, I won't be able to check it. So if you can message me in Facebook, that's also better, and we can kind of group and just really talk about the plan of attack on how we're gonna go about it, who are the key personnel, because yeah, I think it can be done with the right people. All right. Yeah. But that, yeah, what, like, let's outside of you and me and you and me, Gladys, I'd like to hear from Pastor Lillian if like what's your thought about it?
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
How are you, Gladys, and everyone? So, for me, I'm really in agriculture. So, if it's agriculture and anything concerning agriculture, I could be of help. So, for me, this project of mine is basically of help within the community, nutritionally, for example. I usually give some food for free. I give vegetables. So for nutritional value, I give back to the community. And then in another way, I help girls who don't have sanitary towels. I assist them through these projects of mine. So that's all I can say, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Lillian. So when you say that, Pastor Lillian, are you okay with like, if we're gonna go with this, are you comfortable with being the main person, for if we're gonna be if you're gonna build a company, a business on top? Is this like a registered business, by the way? Not yet.
So not yet, we are still in the process of registering the company.
Okay.
So for now, it is still not registered.
That's fine.
So
And
I was thinking,
yeah,
we could register through the group.
right. Yeah, so definitely it's something that that we can discuss. So that's a good, the way I see it, there's the good thing about this, if we need to, when we move forward and we do the planning for this business, right? You're gonna be the main, I would say, the forerunner for this. We're just gonna help you develop the business side of it, and make
Yes.
sure that it's launched, and we can define, for example, our success criteria, right? On how do we make sure, and I'm gonna need both. How do we make sure that it fits the USAID criteria for funding, right? That's what we need to do. And how do we
Yeah.
make sure that it actually looks really solid once
Yes.
it reaches, so once we submit this for funding? So just developing the business plan, really the what we've been talking about in ACE for the business model canvas, and
Yes.
maybe that could be like a separate meeting, and then we can just present this on a Wednesday so that people will see what we're really doing. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
good, good, good. How about welcome Jane, Barry, and Mercy. Um, we're just
Thank
discussing
you.
a little bit about last week. What are your thoughts about it? And do you have let's start with that. I don't want to preempt whatever you're gonna say. So Jane, can we start with you? What's your thoughts on last Wednesday's announcement?
There were many announcements concerning.
This is concerning the USAID project. Um,
Oh, okay. Number one, I really embrace the idea, and I'm very, very thankful that Dr. Lucas and David came with that initiative, plus Joe, of course. And I know,
I did not came up with that. It's our.
no, you are the one who is now taking the idea. So you are also part and parcel of that. That's what I mean.
Thank you. So that
So,
clarified.
and I know,
Someone will listen to this
I know,
recording.
I know it is really going to help each one of us, and especially uplifting our projects, those the startups and those who want to carry on with what we are doing. So the idea is very, very welcome. And you had said that you are calling a meeting, I don't know, so that we can see where to start. So I may not be able to talk much about that because I don't know what measures you're taking and when we can do the proposals. Yeah, but otherwise we are ready to do the proposals.
so
And
so
we are hoping that every member of ACE will benefit out of this as we work as a team.
right. Okay. Thank you, Jane Berry. My question to you is like right now, do you have a proposal in mind, maybe like one or two of them that you think is a
Yes.
good candidate?
Yes, I have several proposals. Number one is, now I am teaching on pastries and cookery,
Mm-hmm.
and I would want to increase the project. There are many things that I need pertaining cookery, especially. And there's also a pending proposal for the second borehole in Amas Island with Pastor Albert for the mission work that I do in Mas Island.
Right.
And of course now the domestic farming, where we are teaching the Maasais how to rely on their own crops, and some land was donated from Maasai land with Pastor Albert's church, Baptist church, and they said if we could get a funding, they had given a 1 acre land where we can teach the Indonesia community how to plant their own crops. So that is also another project that has been pending.
All right. So I'm excited to. So the idea, Jane, is just kind of really just doing exactly what you're saying, like kind of collecting all these inputs, right? And it's for us to really find out like who's gonna be championing these projects, because if one
Mhm.
person will champion 4 or 5 projects, we can be sure that it will burn out that person, right? And the probability of success is going to be lower down. But yeah, these are good things. And really, I just want to talk a little bit high level for this meeting. And I'm also like, since last week, I'm also thinking about how to move forward. So how to move forward, and so just kind of organizing it in my head, and how to go about it. I'm used to.
I think, Joe, sorry, Joe,
Go
to
ahead.
have interrupted,
No problem.
but I think, you know, as the more we are, the more the project. And I think 2 people may not be enough to be appointed as head of the, you know, projects. Maybe 4 people would do. So
Okay.
that at least, yeah, because 2 people or
I
3.
think, no, sorry, Jane, let me just interrupt you over there. Because the 2
Yeah.
or 3 people are not running with the project. Those 2, 3 people are coordinating. Because if I remember correctly, there was even a suggestion that, for example, the people in agriculture, like now there's you, the land you've talked about, there's Lillian with agriculture. We can have 1 person dealing with agriculture. They also want something on IT. We'll have 1 person dealing with the IT. And then we'll have another person dealing with, for example, there are 2 people who are interested in beekeeping. We'll have 1 person dealing with that. So what the 3 people, Joe, Tom, you and I, are coordinating these things.
Yeah.
So whoever
Yeah.
comes up with a project, yeah, for example, if Lily's in charge of agriculture because of her experience, anybody coming up with a proposal on anything to do with agriculture, Lillian will deal with that. Yeah. If somebody is dealing with, for example, you've talked about cookery classes for the youth, they've mentioned a lot of stuff on working with the youth and women. So if somebody else has something to do with youth, then maybe you could take care of that. Apart from your cookery classes, somebody else dealing with youth, you know, there's a lot of mentoring on youth that I'm doing in the rural areas as well. Maybe you could take up that project. We're also doing cookery and basically self-sufficient activities. 1 person could deal with that. You see, like now Joy is good in IT. If the other people dealing with IT, there'll be somebody in charge. We have 2 people dealing with schools, Tom and Jane. 1 person will deal with schools. I think that will be easier.
Right.
You know, if we're coordinating all this, it will be easier to have focal people dealing with specific items that the project has basically offered.
Yeah, that's exactly, Gladys, thank you for that idea. What I meant was that I was not saying that 4 people are the overall in charge. I was just saying coordinators, like the way you have involved the project, you know, but all in all, we'll be working together, all of us as a team. But of course, there will be overall that somebody will be guiding, you know, somebody with an experience of farming and such like, and even schools. That's what I was trying to explain.
Right. So right now it's probably gonna be too early, and I agree with you, Jane and Gladys. Probably it's too early to appoint now. What I would like to do is to have all the ideas in one, one place, right? And we can categorize this, right? And we can evaluate this by category, and that's when we will do the assignment, right? So that we can have a I would say the primary contact for that specific category, if you know what I mean. That's how at least I would like to approach it. But yeah, feel free to share if you have other ideas on how you think we can better approach it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Pastor Lillian, are you gonna say something?
Okay, Joe, I was suggesting this. Just as Jen Betty has been saying, I've been really keen on listening to what both of them, even Gladys, has been saying. So I've realized that there are so many potentials here. The potential of pastry and cookery. I'm also very interested on that because it really boosts the experience on girls. And also it can really pull our leverage on I could talk about girls who do not finish their secondary education, maybe due to pregnancy, early pregnancy. So generally, Jen Betty, that is a very good idea for pastries and cookery. So I just wanted to do that.
Right. Thank you, Charlene. How about you, Mercy? Mercy, are you able to unmute yourself and maybe share?
Yes. So hi everyone. So for me, I don't have like a project proposal of my own. So I'm happy. I'm happy to support, and yeah, I think it's really exciting. It's a good way of making what we've been learning practical. So I'm really excited for the opportunity to work and assist really.
That's awesome. Thank you. Right. So, um, what I will do now is, so I'm kind of the interim coordinator, main coordinator here. So I'm just gonna make an executive decision. So I'll talk to Gladys and Tom, and just to provide a framework on how we can move forward. I don't want it that there will be too many cooks, there are too many chefs in the kitchen, and I would like to just first provide a framework. And then once we have the framework, then we can it's really just a matter of how we're going to attack this and how we're going to make sure that each idea is treated with the right evaluation. And my goal, and yes, we do want to work together, but my experience tells me that if there's no one person who will be responsible for it, then uh, i- it's the probability of success with any project will be listened, right? Okay. So yeah, thank you. First, thank you so much for coming. I know that we have a bunch of people who are not able to attend what do you call this? Mary, feel free to invite Sylvia, your daughter, to these calls. These are super important, and to for her also to kind of, it's super important for her to kind of get exposed, and maybe she will be able. She would like to spearhead some of the projects, right? Because that's what we need, right? We need people who will take this idea into to action. Okay. So today I'm just gonna share to you I would say a training that I think a lot of people need to know, especially we're dealing with ideas, right? How many of you, how many of you believe that ideas are important? Like I want a one, either one in a comment or raise your hand somewhere. I'm watching the chat. So ideas are super important, right? Without ideas, um, without ideas, well, I don't know. We will not be able to talk over Zoom because Zoom started as an idea, right? Zoom started as a thought, right? So there's this concept of um, everything in this world is created twice. Have you heard of that? Everything in this world is created twice, right? One is in the mind, and the second one is in the actual, perceivable, tangible thing. Okay. Um, the other thing that the other, I would say, I want to say contradictory. The other thing is that I like to share to you is yes, ideas are important, but ideas are also cheap. Have you heard of that? Ideas are cheap. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know. Let me know in the comment or sound out like if you disagree. Right? Ideas are cheap. I commented someone so passionate about idea, and I commented without because I didn't have the tact. I said like ideas are cheap, and they were so angry that I said that. So can you share, Mary, why, how, when does an idea become cheap?
I'm thinking all of us have ideas, good ideas, and you find that most people will have very good ideas, but when it comes to implementing, they will not. It becomes hard. That's the place where you're able to differentiate yourself in terms of implementation. So just having an idea is is like you say, it's cheap. It's all ideas are everywhere, but the implementation is what makes the difference.
Right. And that exactly separates the implementation, separates the dreamers from, you know, the successful. Okay. Let me share my screen now, so that you'll know I came up with a presentation, right? Okay, here we go. Here we go. When it comes to ideas, right? It comes to ideas, it usually starts with a spark, you know, aha moment, right? Uh, how many of you experience this? You know, go somewhere and you're thinking like, man, that's a good idea, or wow, this is a great idea. So you have that moment, that spark, that you know, aha moment where you say like, you know what, I that's something I can do, that's something that's possible, right? um um One of the questions that I have, like when I was starting in my entrepreneurial journey, was that how do you how do you how do you come up with business ideas, right? How do you come up with business ideas, right? What do you think is the answer? Like, can you share, like, how do you think, how do you think people come up with business ideas? Like maybe Mercy, may just ask you. We're all gonna speak here, okay? So just prepare. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna ask you to unmute, and Mercy, how do you think, what are the ways, the different ways like people come up with business ideas? Okay, so Pastor Lillian said, when I see a problem, when I notice a gap, great. That's good. I'm reading you
It's one
guys.
of the-
Go ahead,
it's one of
Mercy. Is that Mercy or someone else?
Yeah, it's Mercy.
Go for it.
Oh, so I think from your passion and interest.
Passion, interest, problems, gaps, right? Yeah, thank you for sharing that. In fact, here it is. Like you can get ideas while observing, you know, in a natural day-to-day occurrence, right? um when you see a problem, right, like what Pastor Lillian and Gladys said, there's a gap, there's a problem. In fact, there's a quotation that I really like: the bigger the problem, the bigger the reward. The bigger the problem, the bigger I reward. And I would remind myself that if you look at your life, your problem should be bigger than before. How many of you have noticed that? Like you're now dealing with bigger problems compared to when you were still 18, right? If you have the same problem right now at 45, at 50, when you're still 18, you're in big trouble. How many of you know that, right? So it's expected that you're dealing with bigger problems because you're getting smarter, because you're getting wiser, because you're getting more capable. Okay, right? So there's the concept here. I think that was introduced to me was that when David, the King David from Israel, when he saw, you know, he was solving lion level problem when he was a shepherd, right? He was solving bear level problem when he was a shepherd. But when he went out to the battlefield, he's solving Goliath level problems. And not just Goliath level problem, it's actually a nationwide problem. So a nationwide problem, right? Once you see that, um, and then you find solution for it, there's going to be a bigger reward. The other source of business idea is basically the third photo that you're seeing here, which is like people. Other people will tell you what the gap is. Other people will tell you what the problem is. Okay. So there's so many problems in the world, right? There's so many problems in the world. The question is if you can find that specific problem or problems that you care enough about. Okay. Obviously, like in my life, there are problems that I don't really think so much about. I don't feel attached to it and passionate about it, right? And this is the reason why there has to be a level of care. There has to be a level of passion that for you to be attached to for you to be a good, I would say, problem solver or a solutions provider for a specific problem. Okay. Why do I mention this? Is because as we move forward and look and identify all these like problems that we can create as a business inside ACE or maybe in your own profession, it has to be something that you care about. You cannot say yes to these things just because the money is right, just because the money is good. It has to excite you a little bit. Now, having said that, you will notice that I will always provide I would say, counter idea, an opposite idea with everything I say, because like life is just like that. It's more complex than, you know, a quotation that you can put on your freezer, right? In your refrigerator. Having said that, you need to find problems that you're a little bit passionate about. Having said that, if you pursue everything, if you build a business out of just passion, right? And you're so passionate about the business, it will just pressure there's a chance that your because your passion does not have the correct business model, it will just pressure your passion to produce for the business. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like, some people are so passionate about writing and they decided it's gonna be my thing. I'm gonna be a full-time writer. So they quit their job and they go become a full-time writer. Nothing wrong with that. The problem now is that it's more complicated to produce money without the existing customer, so on and so forth. Whatever that the writing is not the business, writing is the skill. The business is a totally different animal. It's a totally different thing, if you know what I mean. Okay, so you get business ideas from multiple things, right? But mainly just really understanding and noticing that, like what Gladys pointed out, noticing these gaps, noticing which problem that needs to that's out there. Okay, so just because there's a USAID funding, right? It's important to connect that idea, that need, to a specific business that solves a problem. After you come up with an idea, right? You now dream and you ask the question, what if? What if I can do this? What if I can build this? What if this will scale? What if it will be successful? What if I can do A, B, and C? All these things, right? You start dreaming. You start just kind of exploring from a mental perspective, like, okay, this is gonna be like this in 1 year, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, right? You know, that's the dreaming stage. Okay, so when you have an idea, you become a dreamer, right? You become a dreamer, right? This is the time after the dreams. I wouldn't even the dream stage. Just within the dream stage, I need you to go through what we call the evaluation of your business idea. Okay. Number one, here are questions you need to answer. Number one, is this idea worth pursuing? Right? Is this idea worth pursuing? Just because it's a great idea, it doesn't always mean that it's worth pursuing, right? And there are many factors to that. And so the answer should be, you need to have, you need to answer that. Is this idea worth pursuing? How do I know this will work? Right? How do I know this will work? Now, these are not the only questions that you should be asking. There's definitely a bunch of questions that you should be asking, but these are key questions, I think, that you need to be asking. Number 3, who are the right person or persons to ask about this idea? Who is the right person, or who are the right persons to ask about this idea? Number 4, who is my target? Who are my target clients, right? Where can I find my target client? Right. Will my target client find this valuable? Will they pay for it? Now, even if they pay for it, is the money worth the effort? Right? Even if your target client will say, "Yep, I'm gonna go for it." Now, is the money worth the effort? Is the economics, and this is really what I'm asking, is the economic, when you have a business idea, does the economic sound well? I mean, does the economic work, right? Because it might be, it's a business idea, it's, you can sell something, but then every end of the month it's negative. So now the business model canvas, if you fill it up, it will answer some or all of these questions, right? Next question is, how can I test this idea? Right. Next question, who are the people I need to make this work? Now, this is the hiring part. Do you want to hire a founder, a co-founder? How much money do I need to make this work? And what's the MVP? So MVP stands for minimum viable product. What's the minimum viable product? What is it, the smallest version of this that I can ship, right? So that I will know that I have a business. Normally, when you think of a business, when people think of a business, they think of a finished product without, where all the kinks and holes, gaps are already fixed. Reality of the situation is, if you're gonna think about it that way, you will never be able to ship. Okay. And here at ACE, we're always encouraging you to ship. When I say ship, you produce a product, you produce a service, you launch, you find your first few customers. After evaluating your product or your business idea, you need to talk to people. And I have a lot of photos here because you need to talk to a lot of people. You need to run your ideas through a lot of people. Now, I've done this, and the reason why I have this presentation is because I've done this process. I always talk to a lot of people. Now remember when in the previous slide, we asked who is or are the right person or persons to ask about this idea, right? And what I do is I come up with a list. Like I juggle like my head and say like, hey, like who are the people that I need to sit down with? The good thing about this is that you can ask almost anyone in the world, right? Almost anyone in the world. I would say almost anyone, but like a lot of people, like beyond Kenya, you can ask someone outside the country to sit with you for a 15 to 20 minute Zoom call and just really run the idea through that person. Okay. Now, what I normally do is, one is I look at who's the authority, who's the prevailing authority, and if I can reach out to that person who's one of the authority of that or within that how do we call this, in that industry, and I try to reach out to that person and just really do a small pitch, and I test it right that way. The other one is you can interview. So the good thing about, I don't know how many of you have podcast here. How many of you produce like a podcast or something like a weekly or monthly show? Anyone? No one? Okay. You have one, Gladys? All right. The good thing about having those is that you can use that as a way to invite people in. Like people who are sometimes, so people you don't know, but they're an authority in that specific area, and you can invite them in, and then basically you can interview in a podcast. And this is what I've done in the past. I have a podcast, and what I've ended up having is like inviting people into that podcast. But before we start the podcast, or after we even um, record the podcast, I actually have a small conversation with them and I say, hey, like, what do you think about this? And that could be an opening thing for me to say, like, hey, can we meet for an hour, like sometime this week or next week? And can I run things through you? Right. Okay. So just really going through the we call this the interview process of ideation. Okay. Interview process of ideation. Right. Why do you want to do this? Because you want to evaluate um, the idea, right? And you want to, so for some of these people that you will be talking about, they're the potential clients. Okay. By the way, how many of you have done like the talking to people part of your business? How many of you have done that in the past? I just like to, can you put a 1 on the comment? I want to see out of the 6 people that are listening, like how many people have done like, the evaluation and say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? How many of you like just continuously doing that? A lot of people, here's the thing, a lot of people are afraid to do this because they don't want their idea to be stolen. How many of you can relate to that? If you can relate to like, I'm afraid my idea will be stolen, I want you to put a 0. And let's be honest, I want you to put a 0. How many of you like have thought about it one time? Like, this is a great idea, but I don't want it to be stolen. So I'm not gonna talk to as many people as possible, right? Some people would even meet me and they would ask me to sign an NDA, right? And nothing wrong with that, to be honest with you. I remember like a friend of mine, he migrated to the United States and he has this idea and he has said like, I want you to be on board, but before doing that, I need to interview you, but you need to sign an NDA. And so I obviously I signed the NDA, right? And yeah, the idea is not really good. I'm imagining, I was like, I listened to it, I'm like, this is a waste of time. so so anyway, why do you think, and maybe someone can share me, why do you think it's not the fear of your idea being stolen is not grounded in truth? Or like, why do you think, how many of you are in the place now where like, I can share as many ideas as I can, I'm not afraid of them still stealing it? How many are you in that place? And if you're in that place, can you share to me like why? Shalom is unmuted, so
Yeah, maybe I can share.
go ahead.
Well, I haven't put on, my camera is very dark right now. I'll put it on a little later. So I'm saying I once had an experience. I didn't know that I was being copied, or rather somebody was coming to steal my idea. So I would run these weekend programs and people would bring their children. And we continued, for a couple of years, then I stopped. And then at one point, I was hired somewhere else and I was running holiday programs there. And this lady comes up to me, and my company is called Retro, and that particular program was called Retro Kids. And so she came and told me, oh, we tried to copy Retro Kids, but it didn't work. Then I told her, oh, thank you very much for, coming up and saying, but what were you copying and why didn't it work? And so because she had come, what she had done is come as a volunteer and at the same time brought her daughter. But she wanted to see how the experience is and then go and replicate it somewhere else. And she tried, but it backfired. And she said, it's because I don't think anybody can do what it is that you do. We can try and run a program, but it's not going to be the same. So even her daughter gave her the same feedback that it wasn't the same thing. So for me, I hadn't been afraid of having my ideas copied, but it opened my mind to the fact that, there's people who are walking around ready to imitate something that you're doing, but they're not to be feared. So I got the double experience at the same time, So now I'm really, it doesn't matter. I actually even tell people, I can show you what you need to get done. You go do it in your own way, you know? So I'm open to sharing ideas. I'm open to giving opportunities to people, sharing platforms with others. It's not such a big deal because I believe what I do is not the kind of thing that I can put down and say, go do it, and it comes out exactly the same way. Everyone has their style and there's that personal touch. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Shalom. And you have a good point there with respect to, you know, the your uniqueness as a person, right? It does factor in to the output. And yeah, I'll share a little bit about my experience with sharing ideas, and I'll tell you what I found out. Um, but let me just read through what Gladys is saying here. I'm okay with it being sharing the idea because of personal branding. My idea is unique, and other person may not pull it off. Okay, similar to what Shalom is saying. The way I do, it's about the person running the program, not the program itself. Okay, good point. Now, here's the thing that I found out. So what I found out is, so initially I was thinking, so some of I would say the practices that I do to get clients, right? The practices that I do to get clients, right? I used to just keep it, you know, close to my heart, and then I don't really share that. Um, and even these small things, small tricks that I do, right? Um, for me to close the deal, I used to just don't share that at all. But after doing a lot of consulting work, you know, after um, like, you know, both paid and free consulting work, I've talked to a lot of people. At one point, I would talk to one person every day just for consulting, and like, I don't know, there's like I think him my feeling was like 100 phone calls already, you know, just doing exactly that. What I'm finding out is that, let's just say, out of the 100 phone calls that I did, there's only less than 10% who really act on it, right? And what I'm saying is, like, this is the reason why, you know, when if someone will try to steal your idea, if someone will learn more about your idea, they most likely would like to steal it, but there are only very few people who will really act on it. And when they do copy your idea, yeah, like what Gladys and Shalom said, it would come out differently, because, you know, it's really your there's gonna be your personality will factor in, your drive will factor in, your way of doing things will factor in, your communication style will factor in. Okay, so there's really no such thing as exact copy, unless they copy paste your program, right? That's a different deal. But if you think about the idea alone, and so this is why I started this talk with, ideas are important, but ideas are also cheap. Okay, so, because we can all come up with ideas. Shalom, you like to share more, or like, is there? That's okay. Okay. Now let me proceed. I wanna end this meeting on time. So now here are 5 questions you need to ask your users or customers. 5 questions. One. So when you start talking to people, you just don't waste your time and then talk about anything else, right? You're there for a mission, and the mission is intel, right? Intelligence. So mean to say, like, you need information. 5 questions to ask your customers or users. One, what's the hardest thing about, you know, whatever that is? Like, if it's parenting, if it's talking to your teenager, if it's personal branding, if it's insurance or related to insurance, right? Health issues, whatever it is, like, what's the hardest thing? Okay. And then the next question you can ask is, tell me about the last time you encountered that problem. How often does that problem come up, right? And what does the nature of the problem? So trying to understand. And if it's hard, of course, they said it's the hardest thing, right? Why is it hard? Right? Why is it difficult? What if anything, have you done to try to solve the problem? So now you can see here with this question alone, you can already identify, like, the usual approach, but that also maybe their way is hiring company A, company B. So now you can identify also your competitors and what are their methodologies and why it failed. And why don't you love what don't you love about the solutions you've tried, right? And so now remember, you have an idea and you're trying to figure out the best fit, right? The best solution. Okay, with this you can already figure out what are the existing solutions that you've tried, what failed, and even if it worked, why is it difficult? Because you can always make it easier, faster, better, stronger. I mean, even the existing solution can be enhanced. 3 questions that are numerical, number based. How much does this problem cost them? How many of you knows what? Can you tell me? How many of you can tell me why is this important? Why is question number 1 important?
It gives a reference point
To what?
even when you're charging. I have used this question. I've used this question to almost like support why parents need to take their children for group sessions as opposed to one-on-one.
Right.
I always ask, how much do you think therapy is going to cost you? Because therapy is actually an expensive venture.
Right.
And it's probably almost 10 times the cost of doing a group session with your child.
Right.
And then so when it comes to an actual number, when it comes to an actual, what's called currency, it will cost them in terms of money. It will also cost them in terms of time.
Right.
Kids change faster when they're in a group and when they're motivated. So we are able to achieve more when you take children for a camp that's 1 week long than we can when we do one-on-one.
Awesome.
So really, in terms of whether you answer that, whether that number is a figure from the time factor or it's a figure from the Kenya shilling, it will still cost more for them to try and do this thing on their own than it will as a group. So when they answer that with a figure, it's always better to do it, this other way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because
So that's a reference point.
Thank you for that, Shalom. And for those people who are still thinking, how much do I charge? How many of you have that question? How much do I charge for this? Right? How much do I charge for this? This is a really good answer to that. How much does this problem cost you? Right? So you have to figure it out. So if they tell you, you know what, because I don't have this, it's costing me $1,000 a month. Right. If you're a marriage counselor, you can ask, what will you lose if you get a divorce or something like that? Right. I have a friend who is a marriage counselor, right? And she's don't know how much she's supposed to charge. And then I told her, ask this question to your client, like, how much does your marriage cost? If you split right now, how much? And because she's serving, I would say the top 3% in terms of income in her area, like it will really cost a lot of money. So not just the relationship, but wealth wise, because they're basically gonna split their wealth. Anyway, so you can ask this, how much does this problem cost you? So it will give you a frame of reference in terms of cost. You can say, if I charge 10% of that, like if it's $20,000 and you say, so therefore I can charge $2,000. If it's $10,000, then if I can charge 10%, that's like $1,000. If I can charge 40, in some cases, so and I've done this before also. Like there was this lady who was building her website, who built her website on another platform, and she said like, you're too expensive. And so I said like, okay, so how much are you charge? How much does the company charge you for hosting and everything? Since your website is already set. And she said like, she gave me a very low number, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take a look at it. And I went through her system and actually look at the payment section, and it turned out that she's being charged 10 times than she thought she's being charged. And I said like, per year. I said, do you know that per year you're paying this? And so I charged her double that. And I said, charge her double that. And I said, like, I'm gonna rebuild your system, and you don't have to pay for this per year, and you just have to pay me 2 years worth of hosting. And she said, like, sure. Like it's a no-brainer because there's already a clear cost. Next question: how frequent is the problem? How frequent is the problem? And then the last one, and we all need to figure this out: how large is their budget? How large is their budget? Okay. So you can ask directly the question, like, what's the budget usually? Usually, if I deal with companies, I ask this bluntly. If I deal with individual, I kind of try to find a way how much how much budget. Usually, I would ask like, how much does when you hired someone in the past, how much did you pay for it? And that's usually a really good way for me to adjust cost. But at the same time, really just understand more. Okay. Next step, find a community. Find a community. Okay. Find a community that you can potentially, that has this problem that you can solve, right? So if there's 1, 2 people, 2, 3 people have that same problem, like basically build a community around it, right? Build a community. Find a way to build a community around your problem. So if you're selling, I don't know, like maybe like say if you're selling something, find a community of buyers. If the community doesn't exist, you can build that community. One of the I would say examples that I've seen is that like someone, how do you call this? So this person, he built a community of coffee drinkers. Yeah, they like coffee so much, like they would discuss the different grain, temperature, when it was harvested. I mean, it's so complex. To me, I'm like, I drink a lot of coffee, but I'm not in that level of like really like measuring the tools and everything. So they built a community where people started talking and sharing their techniques, where they can buy grains and things like that. Right? What's the best coffee grinder? Things like, basically this guy built a community, and because there's enough passionate people, they started talking about what's the best what do you call this? What's the best coffee maker? And so what this guy did was he was selling coffee makers. And so what he did is like he would only allow his own coffee maker to be there and be discussed. And so he would get like orders, and these are like very expensive ones. This is not what like you just see in the shelf in a mall. These are like really high-end coffee makers. And so people who go there and like looking for like the best coffee maker, the best advice, he would get 100% of the sale. I think like the community went as big as like more than 50,000. Imagine like 50,000 coffee drinkers, but these are not regular coffee drinkers. These are coffee drinkers that will really spend on their coffee, right? So I'm not in that group, obviously. I'm just, but there are, and then the other thing that he did was like all the bean suppliers, he would say you can't post it without applying to me because I'm the administrator, and every single bean supplier would apply as a seller in his Facebook group, right? And he would get I think he's asking for 15% commission, right? 5% will go back to all the members, and 10% who would get it, like for all the suppliers. So it's a thriving business. And so this is the power of the community, right? So build a community, right? Within, so find a way to build a community. Then draft your solution. How does that look like from the onboarding to the actual delivery? What's the after sales look like? Write them down. You know, create a pitch deck. Okay, create a pitch deck. What does it look like? Even though you're not pitching to anybody, create that anyway. And then create what's called a minimum viable product and test the solution. Minimum viable product. Okay, you don't have, so when people think about launching something, they always think about, oh, I'm gonna rent a building, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Think first on like, what does the minimum viable release would look like, right? And then get some customer to try the solution. Test if the workflow will work, right? Mean to say, are you able to deliver the result that is promised? And then are you able to get paid? Like that whole cycle. And what's the process? So basically just get things going. All right. Now here are the pitfalls usually with this. You know, when you're starting with an idea and then you're starting to execute, going to releasing your MVP, the pitfalls. One is getting lost and being stuck in the ideation phase. So I like this verse in Proverbs 13, verse 12. It says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. People who are so full of ideas and like, just like, oh, I'm just gonna get so much idea. They usually, I don't know, like so much idea and no action, no result. It makes the heart sick. I don't know if you've experienced that. I've experienced it in the past many, many times. I used to be an idea guy. You know, I would have like bunch of ideas. Well, I'm still an idea person, but I'm 90% action, 10% ideation. But I used to be like 99% idea. I have so much ideas. I have so much like idea for this and idea for that, and it's really good. Like I feel great. I feel accomplished just because I have a ton of idea, right? But what I found out later on is that this proverb is really true. If you keep having idea, you're hoping so much, but nothing is moving, and so you don't feel great in the inside, right? But once you see an idea take off and actually bear fruit, the next line is also true. It's a longing fulfilled. It becomes a tree of life. You will feel like, what does a tree of life does? Like it makes person live forever, right? Immortal. It brings new life in your body, in your mind. Okay. So when it comes to ideation, trim your list of ideas. So imagine a cutter, a grass cutter, and you just cut ideas as much as you can, and then focus on getting initial and tangible result. I could not stress this as much because a lot of people are stuck with ideas. Oh, I have this idea. I hear that a lot of time, and what I would like to hear more is not just in this not in this group, okay, but overall. Like if I look at how many people I've talked to on a week to week basis, people have so much idea. People who book a call with me, even my existing client, they would say like, I have an idea, right? And there was no plan of making it happen, which I like because I get paid, right? Moving that idea forward. So that's the thing. So ask yourself, what's the next action? How can I move this idea forward? Because that's really the bottom line. And it could be you're the one moving it, or you hire somebody to move it forward. Okay. So it's easy to get lost in the sea of ideation. It's is so easy to get inspired. Okay. Eating the elephant all at once. It's the same thing, right? You have this one idea and you just want to build. I want to build the whole thing, right? And so what will happen is you get overwhelmed. What will happen is that you feel confused, you get anxiety, it feels unclear. Just look, our mind can only store so much. Our conscious mind can only store limited amount of information. How do you know that? Have you tried thinking of two different ideas at the same time? It's impossible. Why? Because your conscious mind is always, it can only focus on one thing at a time. And so if you fill it with so much detail, it will overwhelm you. So that's where overwhelm comes in. Here's another one, and it's one of my favorite: falling in love with your idea too much, right? So like this is my idea. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, and you're so in love with the idea. You don't want to listen to anybody. You just want to pursue it. And if there are objections to the idea, you just say, it's not gonna work, instead of testing it. Okay. So the operational word for today is test. Okay. Work is also one, right? Now, here's the other time. Working on too many ideas all at once. Oh, I have 5 ideas and I'm working one on Monday, second one Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I like this quotation so much. What's the how to stop? There's a question: how to stop a person with an idea? How to stop a person with a vision? How do you stop a person with a vision? You don't know? How do you stop a person with a vision? Give him or her 2 visions. But can you see there's so much truth to that? Right? The Bible even say if you're a double-minded man, you're a double-minded person, yeah, you can expect to get anything, right? And you know what? One of my mentor said that in one talk, and he was talking after he said that, he was talking about a lot of things, but I don't want to listen to whatever he said. I was just want to deal with that statement. Like, my goodness, I have so many moments in my life where I'm focusing in 2-3 different things, right? And I pride myself in dealing with 17 different things at the same time, right? But that's really the reason why you're not moving as fast as you need to be, because you're dealing with at least 2 vision. How many of you can relate to that? Like, put a 5 on the chat if you can relate to that. Put a 5, meaning to say, or high five. It's like high five. Okay, give me a high five. All right. Here we go. High five, everybody. So you see, this is the goal here, is not to have so many ideas. Well, it's fine to have ideas, right? The goal here is to focus on the few and try it out. Here's another pitfall: not testing the idea. This is the reason why, if you have access to funding right now and you have an idea, like, it's very dangerous, because you might be thinking, oh, the only problem with this idea is it doesn't have funding. How many of you, like, that's the thing, the initial thing that comes to mind, like, yeah, I have an idea, but the bad thing here is there's no funding. No, I think that the worst thing that could happen is for you to get funding to every single idea that you have. Why? Because you might be thinking that money is the only solution, right? Now, nothing wrong with funding. I love funding. I like money, right? How many of you like money? Give me a high five. So I like money. But the thing is, if you're thinking every single solution of my problem is just money, not really, because the reality is, whether you have money or you don't have money, you still need to test your idea, right? Test your idea. Think that if not taking time to understand the client, right? If you're still confused on how to communicate to your client, even in your existing business, this is your problem. This is your pitfall. You haven't had enough airtime, talk time with your client, with your potential client, not just with your potential client, with your ideal client, right? That's why I always believe on like spending the time with your potential client, spending the time with the community, listening to them, looking at their comments. It's, you have to spy a little bit and say, what's the pain point here? Why are they not buying? There must be a reason, right? Take time. That's a pitfall. Impatience, jumping to one idea, from one idea. So it says from one idea to another. So here's a problem. Say if you pursue one idea, started talking to people, and then when you started launching something, or maybe like when you started talking to someone, one person said, that's not gonna work. Right? And you say, oh, okay, if that's not gonna work, and you really respect this person, right? Okay, if that's not gonna work, then I'm gonna move to the next idea. And then so here's the caveat for talking to people is not to get a consensus answer, not to get an answer where everybody says yes, like, right? But it's just to get intel as to the viability of the idea, right? The idea, viability of the business. So impatience, jumping to another idea, one idea to another idea. It's just really, oh, maybe it's not going to work, right? Impatience. Next, not understanding the opportunity you're offering, right? This is very important. You, in your business, you are providing an opportunity. What is that opportunity you're giving? You're not counseling. You are not counseling for a marriage. If you're a marriage counselor, the opportunity you're giving is the opportunity for the couple to have heaven on earth marriage, right? That's the opportunity. So the question is, what opportunity are you giving? It's different. The service, the name of the service is different from the opportunity. And so a lot of people are talking about the service more. A lot of entrepreneurs and salespeople and business people are talking about the service more instead of the opportunity. What's the opportunity, right? What's the opportunity? So if you understand the opportunity, like what does your idea not just solve, but what is it? What does it mean if they if they will say yes to your idea, or say yes to your business idea, if they say yes to your business, if they say yes to the service. This one is like one of my favorite. Losing patience. It's still impatient, but when things are not working. So let's just say you've launched your business. Let's just say you've provided an offer and it's not working, right? Your brain will tell you this might not be the business for you. Because you know why? Because your brain doesn't want you to lose, right? So it will tell you, avoid this pain of failure and jump to another business, jump to another gig, sell this thing, get this thing, but what you really need to go is to go back to your solution, go back to your customer, and ask yourself and ask your customer, why are you not buying my service? Why is this failing? And fix the problem, because the problem is not you're in the wrong business. Maybe not entirely that you're in the wrong business. The problem is maybe your presentation sucks, right? The problem could be the price point is wrong. You have wrong price point. The problem could be you have the wrong customer, right? I mean, think about that. There's so many factors to things not working. And your brain will tell you, just change business, because that's the easiest cop out. You know what I mean? Okay. key takeaways, and then we go to a Q&A for the next 10 minutes. Focus on taking small actions that lead to result, not your ideas, that leads to your result. Find your customer. Spend time with your customer. Balance mapping the future versus the next step. Super important. You cannot just focus on the next step solely. You have to learn how to map where is this going? Where's the whole thing going? Right? But you cannot also just focus on, oh, my 1 year, 2, 3, 5 year plan without thinking about next step. And like I said, the operational word for the night, test, and test your idea. And of course, be patient. Be patient, because the only reason why, well, I think a lot of failures is because of lack of patience. A lot of failure in business, it's coming from not patient enough to really spend the time, with the customer, to really spend the time with testing, to really spend the time with testing your product and services. Okay. All right. So I hope you learned something here today, but I'm very curious on, like, because in the next 8 minutes, we're gonna just talk about Q&A, like what your questions. Like if you have any question, go for it now, because yeah, we only have 7 minutes. Wow. Okay. So my professor would always say, I don't know. Go ahead.
There's something that Gladys had asked.
Yeah, sorry.
There's something that Gladys had commented.
Yep.
Which I thought is an interesting challenge.
It's difficult question when it comes to my bereaved clients when I plan funerals. What is this related to, Gladys?
Okay, apart from planning events, I plan funerals for people. So sometimes it's so hard I sit with them as they're going through the budget, so sometimes it's so hard to tell them how much I'm charging for that particular event, because you're thinking on one hand, they're bereaved, they've got other things to think about, but I need to be paid for my services. It's my time that I'm, spending to make everything, as smooth as possible for them. But then again, I just feel like shame to ask for the money. But yeah, so sometimes I wait till after the whole thing and then I send my invoice,
Right.
But it's very hard. I find it very hard sometimes. I've had 1 or 2 clients whom I just didn't charge because it was just too difficult. The circumstances and everything were just too difficult. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. That's a very interesting, I would say, situation. That's a very, very what would you say? I'm wondering, like, for those people who are building the coffins, do you think they feel the same way?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I go sourcing for coffins, some of them tell me business is so bad. I'm like, how can you say business is bad? There's just no right way to put it. Business is bad because people are not dying, so the coffins are not being bought. And then when you say business is good, it's because a lot of people are dying. So it's a very tricky situation.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is probably I'm saying, like, those who are building the coffins probably don't feel as same shame as what you're feeling, primarily because they know if they're not gonna make the coffin, like, where do the family, I mean the bereaved, would put their family members, right? I mean, to me, it's like you have to see it like, what solution, what's your opportunity, Gladys? It goes back to that. What's the opportunity that you're giving to them? Because once it's clear to you, right, you will not feel shame because you're there to give them the opportunity, right? You're not giving them just a service. If you think it's it's a service, it's a I'm helping them prepare for the funeral, right? You're seeing it as a service, but if you see it as an opportunity, then that doesn't make sense. When I say that, it removes the feeling of I'm hoping that it removes the feeling of shame, right? Because you're actually there to give them an opportunity to say goodbye to their loved ones, to nurture and cherish the ones that remain, at the same time that their loved ones are buried, and has a funeral service with honor and care, right? That's the I don't know, you can articulate your service probably better than that, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, but if you're thinking,
Yes.
oh, I'm gonna be here because I'm planning a funeral service for the bereaved, and now you go into the emotional cycle of like, and that they don't have money. Look,
No, you see, the thing is, I give them a chance to celebrate the life of the person. I
right?
give them a chance to sit and bond together and not think about planning. Who's
How
doing
much does
this?
it
Who's
cost?
doing that?
How much does that is that worth
You
for them
can't,
to be able to do that?
yeah, for them, it's a big deal, yeah, but
Yeah.
you can't quite.
I do get it. I'm your business is quite in the place where in like, oh my goodness, like I'm also like tiptoeing. It's a sensitive, moment, but at the same time I'm also thinking, also thinking, don't think about you're paid by the time. You think about like the opportunity that you're bringing to the family, right? And my thoughts on invoicing later. I think it's a little bit. There's always a risk. I mean, I've tried it with everything that I do, like invoicing later, because I feel like maybe I should just invoice later. And because this is like, especially I have old clients, right? I have old clients, and so I know they're gonna pay, and so I invoice a little bit later, and then I found out that I keep on following up, and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. Joki said, can Gladys tuck her personal cost in the other costs? So yeah, that's so basically, do you do like a package, Gladys, wherein like it's a package cost for like funeral service with, I don't know what else is taking place in that. So I think that's what Joki is saying, like, so that you'll be paid one
Yes,
time, but you
that's
take care of
what I'm
everything.
saying. Yeah,
Right?
that's what I'm saying, yes.
Gladys, you're typing. Okay. Gladys is saying, sorry.
I was trying to type and it's all funny now. No, I was saying, yes, I do get a percentage from the service providers because I use the same people. I have a florist, I have a videographer, I deal with the different funeral homes and I have a different relationship with all of them. So basically, yes, I do get a percentage depending on how much, whatever it is that I take. But also I have my own service charge. I charge a small fee at the beginning, before providing the service. It's like just to show commitment, basically, so that I'm not doing everything and then they change their minds. So I do have a service charge, yeah.
No,
Upfront.
Joki was saying like you can have a silver, gold, and platinum package where it has everything, right?
Yes.
Do you have that?
Yes.
But that includes the
Yes, I do.
funeral.
I have packages.
Okay, yeah, that's what. So that's what
Yeah.
she's saying. Shalom is saying, your problem is cultural, meaning, meaning that we have been brought up to think. Yep, I totally agree. Totally agree. It's a culture. Even here, I'm like thinking about like, well, if I'm in that place, if I'm having that business, it's definitely there's a lot of, what do you call this? And plus, people don't really plan so much on their death, right? I mean, they don't have a budget for
Yeah.
I don't know you have it there, but here we do have like where you pay for your we pay for the coffin and then the land. Well, I don't know if you have it there, but we do have that. You pay for the land and the coffin and the I think that was popular, but then the expense is much bigger than that because the renting the funeral parlor, what is that, the where the wake would take place, the food, and just organizing all these things. I mean, yeah, but yeah, it's a cultural thing, but yeah, I'm okay, good. Any other question or thoughts or inputs like to share? All right. Okay. If you don't have any question, then we're gonna call it a day. And I hope you learn something.
Mine is probably a comment.
I'll go ahead. All right. Yes. Comment.
Yeah, it's a comment more than a question, because this is something that you have encouraged us to do for a while. I got to test it, and it's something that I must say is working. I did, there's an idea that had been brewing in my head since last year. And then I ran a test, what is it called? A test exercise. And one of the best feedback I've gotten is that the ladies who have gone through that program actually want to redo it, and they want to pay for it. And they have helped me, I got to ask these questions that you were saying we should ask,
Yeah.
Like how much does a problem cost you, things like that. What would you be doing if you are not doing this? Or what would your future look like if you did not go through this particular session? And how do we stop our daughters, for instance, from experiencing the same things? And what it has done is end up giving me a larger forum to take this through, a chance
Shalom,
to charge them.
can you give us a background? What was the idea and how did you test it?
Okay, so what I did was read a book. Okay, right. Okay, read a book sounds a bit off. I basically, because of having done counseling psychology, I'm in the place where I'm working on people improving their personal well-being, right? Now, sometime last year, we lost a friend to leukemia. And in the process of her dying, we had conversations about what causes cancer, the experiences people have and all. And somewhere along the way, I got a book by Dr. Gabo Mate on the hidden cost of stress, which I felt was a very, very important thing to share. And so I invited a group of friends to share, to just spend some evenings. And I told them, just grab a cup of tea, get a journal, let's have a conversation about what's the hidden stresses that we are carrying are actually costing us. And so got the group, 7 women signed up. And so we did a pilot program for the month of March. I'm calling it pilot because everything was a trial. I wanted to see what does this look like if I converted it into an online class. So we started by just sharing why am I doing this course. Then I introduced the topics that I would like to cover. And then the first thing we did was form a WhatsApp group. Then I told them I'd like to try this as an online course. So do you mind me taking all the material to an online platform? So I transferred everything to Teachable and they enrolled. And so I asked them to give me their user experience. What does it feel like to interact with this content here? If I drop for you the videos here, if I drop for you your text, your worksheets, what does it feel like to do this? And so they all got onto Teachable because you see, I wasn't charging them for it. So they're just doing it to share the experience. But then what I discovered was that they were getting a lot of value from the evening sessions that we were having. And through that, they said that we haven't even scratched the surface and they would like to do this course again. So they already started calling it a course before I entirely made it a course. So what we are doing now, we are about to finish. And so we'll be finishing next week. But out of that, the curriculum is a lot more clear. So I've gotten clarity that I didn't have before. I must say before I started with the idea and passion, but now I've gotten clarity. I've gotten like a charging model. and a framework within which I can now get other people joining, because I can't just form WhatsApp groups all the time. You know, every cohort having a WhatsApp group, but when we are all in this academy online, then people are able to comment and share as colleagues within the same course.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is it works. Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mm.
All right. So let's say thank you, Joe, for the training. It helps us to price our service by asking the cost of the problem. Yeah. Are you asking the question, Mary, or like is like that? Yeah. Anyway, if you are, yeah. So yeah. That's a really good. It's a really
No,
good way.
it's a comment.
It's a comment. Okay.
It's a
Awesome.
comment. Yeah, it's very valuable. It's a very valuable way of looking at it, because sometimes we just look at what we are offering, and probably getting that value by looking at what is the cost of the problem, and asking the person who is taking the course, then makes them also understand from their end the value that you're offering, the value that you're giving to them.
Yes. Yeah. And you need to hear it from them. You need to hear it from them that it's value, like, and they have to tell it themselves. That's the beautiful thing about this question is if they tell you, right? If they tell you that this is how much it costs, I think if I were to put Kenyan shilling equivalent to the time, the stress, blah blah blah, it comes from them. It's not you. And this works with insurance, Mercy, because like you have to ask them, what does this, you have to know it. It has to come from them, where they say, like, you know what, I think it costs a lot. Like, for example, stress. Like we just say stress, but what does stress, like, what is stress costing you? Like, cost your life, right? But the thing is, like, if you will to put a Kenyan shelling value, the thing with putting money value to it is it because our brain understand number much faster, right? Our mind is able to wrap like this idea of like money. Money is so easy. Now, money is not everything, right? But it's so easy to understand something when you put monetary value to it, right? If that makes sense. But it has to by asking this question, and you can even use this in one-to-one sales. If you're talking to a specific client, you can ask them, like, how much does this cost you? If right now, right? And if they will tell you, like, I think, and you can even help them, like, so, if you spend the time, the delays, the conflict with the family, blah blah blah, and then it was like, if I were to put a money value to it, then it would occur to them that you're not just providing that service, right? You're not just providing service, you're actually solving a real problem. Okay. Yeah. Pastor Lillian said, thank you so much, Joe. Testing is very crucial rather than rushing into an idea. Yes. So I think testing is important as a part of execution. In fact, we're always testing. And I like this example that Shalom did, where she said, oh, we're reading a book, but she's really testing the idea of, will people pay for this? Right? Well, people will act. One is are they gonna pay attention? Second, are they gonna pay money for this? And if the answer is yes, right? If the answer is yes, then you have a slam dunk to business, right? Now, next week I'm gonna talk about IP, building IPs, intellectual property, and this works with any type of business, because it's so valuable. I'm gonna show next week. So the way we're gonna do this, since I'm taking over the driver's seat in the next 4 weeks, hopefully just within 4 weeks. I'm realizing how it's a preparation that David does every week. So because I've got what do you call this? Because I have to think actually on what will happen next week. So next week I'm gonna talk about how to use IP. But first half, please be present, because we're gonna go over some reports on how we can move forward on the USAID thing, because that's the mandate of David, and I want to make sure that I honor that. There's gonna be a discussion, but also some of you expressed a concern that we're not gonna have training, right? So I'm gonna meet both needs every single week, so we can all benefit from it. And as I've said, the way, if you want to honor this time, guys, I'm gonna say this: if you want to honor this time, you would make me happy, make David happy if you actually do something about it and report on it every single week. What I'd like to hear is like similar thing that Shalom said. Like, I've done this, I've tested that. This is what I've because I'm learning also that this way. Like whenever one of you would say, this is what I've done and this is what worked, right? I'm learning this way. Okay, so this is a good way to, like, remember the key takeaways that I mentioned. Like, I think, like, if you can summarize it, it's about taking action no matter how small. Don't get stuck in the idea zone. And it's the same thing with training, because I can train you every single week for the next 10, 15 years and nothing will happen because because you have to take that small step of action. That makes sense. Okay. So if I would welcome those type of course I will welcome every single comment, right? So I don't want to, am I too direct? So sorry. If I'm too direct, let me know. If I'm animated, there's like a regret. There's a little bit of regret that I said that, but you see, I'm like I'm also, I want to encourage you, like to test something, and especially if we're going to this like ideation phase with the USAID move, I would like to see more of that more that conversation for Weekend with Us. But next week, stay tuned. We're gonna do the importance of IP, and yes, please invite your friends, and because I think we can invite like the old the people who were enrolled before, right? So yeah, I'd like more people to take action. Okay, all right, everybody. I'm gonna say goodbye for now. See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Bye, everyone.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, have a
Thank you.
nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.